Do you ever find yourself ensnared by the clutches of anxiety, where each day feels like a labyrinth of inescapable worries? Today's narrative mirrors our own struggles with anxiety, revealing how understanding and respecting the world around us can offer solace to our anxious minds. In the heart of a sun-kissed forest, Daisy, a venerable tortoise of 50 years, gently emerged from her cozy cave nestled at the base of a towering oak tree. As she stretched her tiny legs and neck, releasing a contented yawn, Daisy reveled in the beauty of these mornings, perfect for a leisurely amble by the shimmering pond before her daily repast. Residing beside the tranquil pond, enveloped by the lush embrace of the surrounding trees and flora, Daisy cherished the tranquility of her wooded abode. It was an idyllic sanctuary for a contemplative turtle like her, a place where she savored the scenery and exchanged wordless pleasantries with her fellow woodland denizens. During her stroll, Daisy crossed paths with a diligent squirrel, its paws laden with nuts for the impending winter. Greetings were exchanged, and Daisy inquired about the squirrel's preparations. The furry denizen explained its concerns about the impending cold months and the urgency of gathering enough sustenance to survive. Daisy offered sage advice, reassuring the squirrel that time remained abundant for stocking supplies and encouraging it to revel in the present moment. Acknowledging Daisy's wisdom, the squirrel resumed its peaceful journey. A shift in the atmosphere signaled the approach of joyful laughter. A group of children from the nearby village, frequent visitors to the forest, had arrived for a playful day by the pond. Curiosity piqued, Daisy cautiously approached the children to observe their activities. Amidst the 5 children, 3 girls and 2 boys between the ages of 6 and 9, Daisy witnessed pure innocence and unbridled joy. They frolicked after butterflies and gleefully splashed in the shallows, much to Daisy's delight. Watching them, she fondly reminisced about her own youthful days spent swimming in those very waters. Suddenly, Matt, one of the children, raced toward his friends with an air of excitement, cradling something in his hands. He announced his discovery of a turtle and presented Daisy to his friends. While Daisy hoped her interaction with the children would be fleeting, one of the girls, Emily, expressed her desire to hold the turtle. Matt handed Daisy over with little thought, and Daisy found herself in the grasp of curious, albeit somewhat careless, young hands. Being lifted and handled against her will was far from an enjoyable experience for Daisy. Attempting to regain her composure, she recollected the teachings of a wise mountain monk. She focused on her breathing, chanting her special mantra in an attempt to calm her racing thoughts. Despite her best efforts, the children's relentless enthusiasm persisted. The remaining 3 children clamored to hold her as well, their excitement escalating. Amidst the chaos of their exuberance, Daisy's anxiety surged. She felt a rush of dizziness and fear as she was tossed about like a plaything, growing increasingly disoriented. Without warning, Matt, the boy who had initially discovered her, grabbed Daisy and flung her through the air with unexpected force. She landed amidst a thorny thicket some distance away. The children found amusement in her unexpected flight, unaware of the distress they had inflicted upon her. After a brief but futile search for Daisy, they resumed their games. Concealed within the thicket, Daisy remained in a state of shock from her traumatic ordeal. Miraculously, she had landed among thorns without severe physical harm, yet her heart raced and panic coursed through her. Venturing so far into the forest was unfamiliar territory for Daisy, and the prospect of being distant from her beloved pond was overwhelming. Tearfully, she reflected on her animal friends, her cave, her daily routines, and the comfort of her familiar surroundings. In her present state of distress, even her once cozy shell seemed to shrink, further amplifying her fear and uncertainty. Hours passed as Daisy shivered and wept, gripped by fear. She contemplated calling out for help, but her voice remained stifled by anxiety. Eventually, she managed to suppress her sobs, though anxiety still gnawed at her thoughts. She realized that she couldn't remain concealed in the thicket indefinitely. She had to find her way back home. Struggling to her feet, still feeling disoriented and anxious, Daisy surveyed her surroundings. The dense canopy of the forest made it challenging to discern her location, and she was uncertain of the direction leading to her cherished pond. With a quivering voice, she approached other animals in the vicinity, desperately seeking guidance on her journey back home. As Daisy desperately sought guidance on how to find her way back home, she came upon a raccoon foraging amidst a decaying log in search of insects. In her haste, she approached the raccoon and implored it to help her locate her way back to the pond in the forest, her beloved home. The raccoon, engrossed in its meal, appeared initially disinclined to assist. Mentioning it had never ventured in that direction and had no knowledge of her pond's whereabouts, it emphasized its focus on the task at hand, savoring the feast before it. Daisy pressed onward, her spirits sinking, tears welling in her eyes. The fear of being lost weighed heavily on her. With trembling steps, she approached a group of rabbits and, between sobs, timidly inquired if any of them had knowledge of the way back to the pond. One of the rabbits replied, explaining that they avoided that side of the forest to steer clear of the perilous two-legged children. It seemed they were unwilling to assist Daisy in finding her way. Then, in the distance, Daisy spotted a majestic deer. "He appears wise and kind," she thought with a glimmer of hope. Summoning her last reserves of strength, she approached the imposing deer and implored its assistance in navigating her way back to the pond. The deer regarded her with compassion, its deep voice resonating as it explained that its hooves limited its ability to traverse the terrain she needed to reach. It confessed not knowing the route to the specific pond she sought. Daisy's heart sank, but she mustered the courage to ask if the deer could carry her on its antlers to hasten her journey. She believed the deer's swiftness could be the key to her return. Regretfully, the deer declined her request, clarifying that its antlers were not suited for transportation. Nevertheless, it offered some advice. She should consistently head in the direction where the sun rose each morning, traveling in a straight line. This, it believed, would eventually guide her out of this part of the forest. With those words of guidance, the deer gracefully withdrew, leaving Daisy feeling desperate. Anxiety threatened to swell into a full-blown panic attack. She began to hyperventilate, tears streaming down her cheeks. Daisy realized she had to find her way back to the pond, or her fear would only further weaken her. Daisy continued her crawl through the woods, her sobs growing fainter, her strength waning. Her shell seemed heavier than ever, and the seemingly endless forest closed in around her. Just when she teetered on the brink of despair, she stumbled upon a small clearing encircled by bamboo. In the center stood a tiny cabin, perfectly sized for a small creature like herself. A flicker of hope ignited within Daisy as she considered the possibility of finding a hermit who could guide her. Still sobbing, albeit with a newfound glimmer of hope, she approached the cabin. Suddenly, the tiny door of the bamboo hut creaked open, taking her by surprise. An elderly mouse, dressed in a long orange robe, emerged from the cabin. Daisy had never encountered such a mouse in the forest before. The diminutive mouse moved with the support of a wooden staff and sported a long, flowing white beard that almost brushed the ground. Upon spotting Daisy, the mouse smiled kindly and approached her calmly. In a gentle and composed voice, the mouse acknowledged that he had sensed her distress and suffering from within his modest abode. He inquired about how he could be of assistance and what had caused her inconsolable tears. Daisy found immediate solace in the mouse's serene presence and proceeded to recount her harrowing ordeal. The wise mouse listened patiently, nodding in understanding. The little rodent assured Daisy that he sensed she had experienced much hardship, but urged her not to surrender to despair. He explained that often, the greatest sources of anxiety resided within one's own mind. Daisy didn't fully grasp the meaning behind his words, and asked how she could release her grip on her attachments. After all, her singular desire was to return home swiftly, as she felt vulnerable and afraid in the unfamiliar forest. The mouse offered a reassuring smile, and clarified that the root of fear and anxiety often lay in excessive attachment. Daisy's strong hold on her home had left her feeling lost without it. Yet, the essence of life resided in impermanence and ceaseless change. One must learn to release attachments and adapt. Daisy, though puzzled, experienced an overwhelming sense of peace in the peculiar mouse's presence. It was as if the mouse emanated a unique inner light. She asked the wise mouse how she could release her attachment when her home encompassed her entire world, and she felt a dire need to return. Distress weighed heavily on her. The mouse imparted that there was no need for desperation or inner turmoil. First and foremost, she needed to find calm and inner strength. Otherwise, she risked wandering further astray or succumbing to her own efforts. With that, the mouse moved closer to Daisy and gently instructed her to close her eyes and take several deep breaths. Recognizing the mouse as a wise and enlightened figure, Daisy followed his guidance. The mouse performed a special mantra with a melodic chant and graceful paw movements. A profound sense of peace and tranquility enveloped Daisy's body and mind, a warm sensation that welled up from within. When she opened her eyes, they held a peculiar glow. Expressing her gratitude, Daisy thanked the mouse and requested to learn more about the special technique for finding inner peace. The mouse explained that it was called meditation and could help calm anxieties and provide clarity to solve problems. He advised Daisy to practice it daily to attain serenity. Daisy remained in the small hut of the old mouse monk for several days, learning to meditate and manage her anxieties. She was immensely grateful for the shelter and guidance the kindly hermit provided. Each morning, the little mouse guided her through mental and physical exercises like Tai Chi, gentle movements, and deep breaths that aligned Daisy's body and mind. The mouse monk also taught her various mantras and creative visualization techniques, helping her confront some of her most profound fears step by step. Occasionally, Daisy ventured out of the hut for short walks, always returning thanks to the concentration techniques she had learned. One morning, after breakfast, feeling more at ease, she mustered the courage to discuss her journey home with the wise monk. Daisy expressed her gratitude and shared her intention to resume her journey home. The old mouse monk nodded with a pleased smile, stroking his long, fluffy white beard. He offered his wisdom, advising her to trust the path, seek directions when needed, and be prepared to face uncertainty, armed with the teachings she had learned. Daisy nodded in understanding, feeling more at ease, and the monk presented her with an old amulet from around his neck, placing it around hers as a talisman for good luck. He assured her that it would protect her on her journey. Daisy accepted the talisman with gratitude and promised to take good care of it. With an affectionate hug, they bid farewell, for the little rodent had become a cherished friend to the tortoise. Daisy set off on her return journey, moving at a slower yet steadier pace. Whenever her old anxieties threatened to resurface, she closed her eyes and practiced the soothing breathing she had learned, and it worked like magic, helping her regain her center. Thanks to the compass of the talisman the monk had given her, Daisy could better guide herself, avoiding wandering in circles. Calmly and with faith, she thought to herself that she would soon be back home again. Daisy had been walking for several days, following the direction where the sun set every evening, as advised by the mouse monk and guided by the talisman's compass. She felt that she was on the right path, even though she was disheartened by the absence of her beloved pond. However, she no longer surrendered to bouts of distress, all thanks to the breathing and meditation practices she employed whenever she felt overwhelmed. One serene morning, as she calmly made her way along a rugged trail, rustling in the underbrush drew her attention. Her heart quickened momentarily, but she inhaled deeply, summoned her bravery, and to her relief, a harmless snake emerged from the foliage. The snake's unexpected speech took Daisy by surprise. It displayed a keen interest in the unique charm hanging around her neck and expressed a strong desire to locate the nearby wise monk. Daisy willingly agreed to guide the snake to the monk, explaining that she had ventured from the monk's dwelling, where the mouse monk had bestowed the charm upon her. Following the same path she had taken previously, she led the snake back to the humble hut she had left behind a few days prior. After a pleasant journey, they reached the monk's dwelling. The tiny snake expressed gratitude to Daisy and swiftly entered the hut in search of the wise monk. Daisy chose not to intrude and greet her dear friend, the monk, not wishing to disrupt his meditation. She decided to continue her journey on her own. Another hour's walk brought her to the massive, weathered trunk of an ancient tree, bearing the scars of a lightning strike. A deep voice resonated from within the tree, inviting all travelers to make a wish by guessing a number between 1 and 30. Filled with excitement, Daisy promptly called out 3, her cherished number. Suddenly, a massive grizzly bear emerged before her, startling Daisy. She nearly stumbled backward in astonishment. The bear informed her that, as she had guessed the correct number, she was entitled to make a wish, and he had the power to make it come true. Daisy made her heartfelt wish to return instantly to her home in the forest pond. The bear responded with a quizzical expression, followed by a hearty, somewhat mocking laugh that seemed to rustle the nearby trees. He conveyed that such a wish was beyond his capabilities, emphasizing the vast and mystical nature of the forest. Daisy felt a pang of regret for her naivety, realizing the unattainable nature of her wish. However, sensing her disappointment, the bear attempted to make amends by offering her some fruits from a nearby bush for her journey. Daisy expressed her gratitude with a nod and continued her gradual but unwavering trek through the forest, drawing strength from the spiritual practices she had acquired after her unexpected encounter with the enormous brown bear. As Daisy journeyed through the forest, she maintained her faith that she would eventually encounter a familiar clearing. Along a path flanked by towering trees, she detected faint voices emanating from behind some foliage. Daisy approached stealthily, parting the undergrowth to catch a glimpse of an extraordinary spectacle. To her great excitement, she discovered a congregation of wise frog monks positioned on flat rocks in the center of a small clearing. They appeared deeply engrossed in meditation, their eyes closed, resembling statues frozen in profound contemplation. These peculiar hermit frogs were renowned for their remarkable longevity, rumored to live for centuries due to their enigmatic Taoist practices. Despite her prior knowledge of these creatures, Daisy was captivated by the scene. She decided to join them, selecting an unoccupied rock to mimic their postures. Following their lead, she synchronized her breathing with the deep, resonant hum of their inflated throats and embarked on a wordless meditation. For what felt like an eternity, at least 2 hours passed without a single soul among them stirring or uttering a solitary word. Daisy found herself immersed in a state of profound inner serenity and tranquility, an experience that surpassed any she had previously encountered. Suddenly, the eldest and largest frog monk opened his eyes, fixing his gaze upon Daisy. Simultaneously, the other frog monks emerged from their meditation. The chief frog, with a guttural voice, praised Daisy for her unwavering silence and stillness, especially considering her young age. His peers nodded in agreement, demonstrating their respect. One even offered a brief bow of acknowledgement toward Daisy. Humbled and pleasantly surprised by their recognition, Daisy expressed her gratitude with a bow. Another frog monk, speaking with reverence, mentioned their familiarity with the great master. He explained that under the master's guidance, their duty was to impart advanced breath control techniques to help Daisy attain greater inner equanimity in the face of adversity. The frog instructors proceeded to share advanced breathing exercises and presented mental puzzles designed to test her self-mastery. Daisy eagerly absorbed their teachings, feeling enriched by the day's lessons. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the frog monks generously offered her shelter for the night, a gesture she accepted with gratitude. Before retiring to rest, the eldest frog monk approached Daisy to impart one last piece of wisdom. He acknowledged her impressive determination and equanimity despite her youth. He encouraged her to trust her instincts and not hesitate to seek help from those she encountered on her journey. With wisdom and poise in the face of challenges, she would find her destiny. Daisy absorbed the old monk's advice, bolstering her confidence and optimism. The next morning, she bid farewell to the wise frog monks, expressing her heartfelt gratitude for their wisdom. Daisy resumed her journey with renewed strength and enlightenment. As she traversed a rocky path, Daisy decided to put her newfound knowledge into practice. She closed her eyes, seeking deeper concentration, and engaged in the advanced breathing exercises she had acquired, nurturing her inner strength. Daisy remained engrossed in her practice, unaware of the descending terrain. Suddenly, she slipped and tumbled into a deep ravine, rolling several meters down the hill. Despite her attempts to retract her limbs into her shell, she eventually came to a stop after hitting a small rock. Daisy was bruised and dazed, but fortunately, she had no broken bones, thanks to her sturdy protective shell. She realized that her challenge now was to climb back up the steep slope to escape the ravine. Just when she contemplated having to find an alternative route around the large pit, she heard a voice from above. Looking up, Daisy was overjoyed to see the large deer that had come to her aid before. The deer peered over the edge of the ravine, concerned for her well-being. The deer expressed concern for Daisy's well-being, asking if she was okay down in the ravine and if she required assistance in getting out of the cliff. Daisy expressed gratitude for the offer of help, acknowledging her mishap and her uncertainty about climbing back up. After a brief pause, the deer advised her not to move. With that, the agile deer leaped up the steep cliff wall and disappeared into the forest. Daisy waited patiently, trusting that her benevolent friend would return. After about half an hour, hooves appeared at the edge of the ravine, accompanied this time by large claws. To Daisy's surprise, her old friend, the brown bear, was now beside the deer. The deer explained that having the bear here would make it easier for her to climb on his back. The sturdy bear began to descend slowly, guided by the nimble deer, who directed him on where to lean. Finally, they reached Daisy's side, and the bear told the turtle to get on his back and hold tight. Daisy did as instructed, clinging tightly to the bear's thick fur as they ascended the treacherous cliff. At last, they reached safety. Daisy was overwhelmed with joy and gratitude, especially knowing that this magical forest was filled with kind creatures willing to help her. After bidding farewell to her rescuers, she continued her journey with renewed courage. As Daisy continued her journey deeper into the forest, the landscape gradually grew more familiar. The bushes, rocks, and delicate ferns became increasingly recognizable. With each step, her confidence in finding her beloved pond, nestled behind the sloping hills, surged. Her heart swelled with excitement as she finally caught a glimpse of her long-awaited destination, bathed in the warm hues of the setting sun. The sight of her beloved pond left Daisy in awe. It was almost too good to be true. Her successful return was a testament to her unwavering determination and the kindness of the creatures she had encountered on her journey. Overwhelmed by emotion, tears welled up in her eyes as she stood before the crystal-clear waters of her cherished pond. With a slow and cautious approach, she savored the familiar and picturesque surroundings, flooded with nostalgia and a deep sense of gratitude for her beloved pond, which she had missed during her prolonged absence. Everything appeared just as beautiful and idyllic as she remembered it. The vibrant water lilies, the gently swaying weeping willows, and the playful waterfowl frolicking along the riverbank. However, Daisy's joyful reunion with her pond was interrupted by a chorus of concerned voices calling out her name. Panicked, she rushed towards the source of these voices, eventually stumbling upon a group of forest animals who were frantically searching the area. To her surprise, among them were not only her immediate family and close friends, but also the raccoon, the inquisitive weasel from the hollow tree, and even the typically aloof peacock. Worry etched across their faces as they urgently called out to her. Daisy, deeply touched by their concern, reassured them with a wave of her tiny paws. At first, the animals stood in disbelief, but soon they surrounded her, leaping with joy and relief. Some of them marveled at her return, unable to contain their astonishment. Others expressed their unwavering faith in Daisy's resilience, praising her incredible journey. A mother squirrel suggested organizing a grand welcome-back celebration in her honor. Following the emotional reunion and the festive celebration that ensued, Daisy found herself joyfully reunited with her closest family members as the sun dipped below the horizon, marking the conclusion of her long and adventurous odyssey. Amidst laughter and excitement, Daisy recounted her incredible forest adventures to her family. She shared the trials she had faced and the benevolent beings who had aided her on her homeward journey. Her worried parents and younger siblings bombarded her with questions, eager to hear each captivating tale once more. Daisy smiled, but within, she reflected on the valuable lessons she had gleaned. She realized that by confronting challenges with unwavering determination, inner fortitude, and a positive outlook on life, one could transform into a better, stronger version of themselves. Following her return to the beloved pond in the forest, Daisy's fame spread throughout the animal community. Many creatures sought her out to hear her tales of self-improvement and seek her counsel when confronted with fears and challenges. Armed with the wisdom acquired from the wise monks during her remarkable journey, Daisy generously shared techniques such as meditation and the graceful art of Tai Chi. Slowly but surely, she evolved into a spiritual mentor, guiding fellow beings on a quest for inner courage and peace. Daisy's homecoming had earned her the admiration of her fellow forest inhabitants. Her captivating stories of self-growth, drawn from her epic odyssey, resonated deeply with many, drawing them to seek her wisdom. Among those who found solace in Daisy's guidance was a squirrel who had long grappled with anxiety due to an excessive hoarding of nuts and acorns. Daisy taught the anxious squirrel valuable meditation techniques and encouraged him to embrace the present moment, lessening his worries about an uncertain future. Her counsel and inspiring tales on conquering inner fears soon cemented her reputation as an emotional counselor among the woodland dwellers. However, Daisy's newfound popularity also attracted the curiosity of certain animals with ulterior motives. A crafty fox feigned interest in her teachings, but, in reality, coveted the secrets of medicinal herbs and hallucinogenic mushrooms learned from the monks during his mystical expedition. Thankfully, Daisy, ever cautious, never divulged too much. She remained vigilant, guarding against the sly fox's true intentions and eluding his traps. One bright morning, Daisy emerged from her cave to a commotion nearby. It was the same group of mischievous children who had once forced her from her home. This time, they had ensnared a mother squirrel, and she struggled in their grasp. Daisy approached cautiously, her heart pounding with old fears resurfacing. The distressed squirrel called out for help, and as the children pursued Daisy, they inadvertently released the captive squirrel. Despite the resurgence of her old anxieties, Daisy ensured the squirrel's safety before retreating into the underbrush. The children, quickly growing bored, eventually departed. The incident weighed heavily on Daisy's mind, prompting a day of reflection. As she watched the clouds drift lazily above the pond, a revelation brought a hopeful smile to her face. She realized that she now possessed the wisdom to handle such situations differently. The following day, Daisy gathered her closest confidants, deer, raccoon, weasel, and owl, for a clandestine meeting by the pond. She unveiled her plan to educate the unruly children on respecting the forest inhabitants. After receiving input from her friends, Daisy presented her idea. Instead of fleeing or fearing the children, they would approach them with compassion and enlighten them about the repercussions of their actions. The animals were intrigued by Daisy's plan, which involved using the next visit by the children to the forest as an opportunity to simulate various scenarios where the forest residents suffered due to human recklessness. The following day, as the mischievous children returned to the pond for their customary summer frolic, Daisy's plan unfolded. One child inadvertently harmed the weasel in the bushes, while others relentlessly pursued a sow into a corner and even witnessed the felling of trees by the swing of an axe. Initially shocked, the children failed to realize that it was all a well-orchestrated performance. The cries of the young deer and the pitiful whimpers of the other creatures seemed utterly authentic, and the children's hearts ached with sorrow. They became acutely aware of the suffering their carelessness could inflict on the defenseless forest residents, leading them to burst into tears. Daisy then emerged from her concealment and gently conveyed that they need not wallow in guilt, but rather use their pain as a catalyst for valuable lessons. She encouraged them to acquaint themselves with and respect every inhabitant of the forest they loved to explore. The children, now more composed, humbly apologized for their past behavior and pledged to be more considerate. They embraced the young deer, the other animals, and the wise tortoise with affection. From that day forward, Daisy witnessed a transformation in the children's outlook on the forest. They became vigilant protectors of nature and its residents. Daisy understood that genuine courage lay not in avoidance or hiding from difficulties, but in facing them with serene wisdom and noble intentions. She believed that true understanding could take root in any heart if one found the right way to share their inner light. Acting in this manner alleviated suffering for oneself and others, fostering personal growth fueled by compassion and empathy.